Questions over the Autopen back in the spotlight. President Trump on Friday said he's canceling all executive orders signed by his predecessor via the Autopen. Well, the U.S. government has used Autopen since the Truman administration. A congressional panel raised questions over the use of the Autopen during the Biden presidency on whether Biden authorized all the signatures. Joining us to unpack this and what could come next is Rod D. Martin, founder and CEO of Martin Capital. Rod, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you here again. Now, President Trump saying up to 92% of the executive orders signed by President Biden could be invalidated if it was found that they were done by the Autopen without President Biden's knowledge. Now, Biden has denied that he was unaware, saying in a statement over the summer, quote, "Let me be clear, I made the decisions during my presidency. Any suggestion that I didn't is ridiculous and false." How likely are we to see these overturned? That could be anything from executive orders to legislation to pardons.
Well, the problem is that even Joe Biden has admitted that some of these were done without his full knowledge. And of course, we got into this when we had special counsel Hur refuse to prosecute him for his improper use of classified information on the grounds that he's basically a senile old man. Well, you can't have it both ways. So here we have staffers apparently using the Autopen to sign major pieces of whether it's an executive order or a pardon, and doing so without the president's full knowledge and consent. That's clearly questionable. You've got to start somewhere, and that's where President Trump is starting, with this presumption that they are false, and then going from there. I'm sure there will be plenty of litigation about all of this, but what it does not affect is legislation or appointments. We know that these appointments were legit. They are absolutely Joe Biden's will. Likewise, legislation, even if he didn't sign the legislation, failing to veto them means that they automatically become law 10 days after they're presented to the president. So that's not on the table. What's on the table is executive orders and pardons, and this opens quite a can of worms for a lot of people and a lot of agendas.
And digging into that, there was a congressional inquiry into this by the House Oversight Committee in October, with a House panel requesting the DOJ to probe the matter further. Now, in terms of next steps, could we see President Biden's aides or staffers investigated?
There's a real possibility of prosecution here. If anybody was using the Autopen without the president's authorization, and I do mean express authorization, not just some general hand waving, hey, I want such and such to happen. He's actually got to have authorized it. That's Article 2. If he didn't, then they committed forgery at best. And it may be worse than that. So they need to really lawyer up and get ready for the DOJ to come for them.
And what role do you see Congress playing in all of this?
I think the oversight function has been quite effective so far. I suspect that we'll see some criminal referrals from the committees. They have done actually yeoman's work on this, which is more than I can say for the Department of Justice during the 4 years that Joe Biden was president. Merrick Garland was certainly not a senile old man. He wasn't doing his job. He wasn't minding the store. And all of the people who staffed that DOJ have some answers that they're going to have to give.
And Ron, I want to switch gears a little bit here and talk about some of the changes we've seen so far. Now, both administrations spoke about holding the Chinese regime accountable, but have differed in their approach. American Thought Leaders host Yanya Kellogg actually sat down with FBI Director Kash Patel recently. I want to play part of that and then have you react.
The Chinese Communist Party has not lived up to its promises, whether written or verbal. How can you be so sure that this agreement will be honored by the other side?
I think there's a couple of factors in play. One, President Trump and President Xi have struck up a relationship that is continuous, ongoing communications to work with each other on a multitude of issues, to include tariffs, which is not my wheelhouse, but it's all interrelated, right? The fentanyl tariffs, it's no surprise, were issued by President Trump because too many Americans were being killed. And they worked out an agreement where they said our agencies are going to meet and make sure that there is no more fentanyl precursor flowing into the drug trafficking organizations, ultimately America. The relief they received was a tariff relief. And I believe because the Chinese government wants additional tariff relief and that tariff relief to maintain, they are going to have to come to the table and continuously show the results with us. And that was my part of my agreement with my counterpart at the MPS. We are going to continue to work together. This wasn't a one-off. If I got to go back, I'll go back. But we're going to show the world jointly that we've adhered to this agreement. And if there isn't, or they violate that agreement on this particular issue, they know the consequences from the president are going to be severe in terms of tariffs and other matters. And so it is a collaborative effort with sanctions also being applied by our partners in Treasury and OFAC designations. We've taken a whole of government approach to ensure that they're going to adhere to this. And if they don't, we'll be the first ones to call it out.
Your thoughts on this multi-pronged approach by this administration?
Well, Cash is going at it exactly right. This is just what Reagan did with the Soviets when he quoted the Russian proverb, trust but verify. The idea wasn't that we trusted the Soviet Union. It was that verification is necessary for trust. And if you verify things, then there's a basis to go forward. That's going to happen here. And this administration has no illusions about the CCP, which has broken every agreement it's ever entered into, much like its communist brethren in the Soviet Union. But bottom line, the Chinese desperately need the U.S. consumer market, or they wouldn't have agreed to the deal that we have in place right now, which places about 4 to 5 times the tariff on their goods as on ours. So we are already clearly demonstrating that the Chinese need us. They're going to need to comply on fentanyl. If they don't, Donald Trump is going to have no mercy.
Well, Rod Martin, as always, thanks for joining us. And for viewers who want to watch the full interview, they can go to Epic TV on American Thought Leaders.